The simple secret to growing your business, we all know, but we don't do. I know it sounds crazy, but when I say it, you're gonna be like, oh, that's super easy. Why is it a secret? Momentum building activities that are consistent. Again, it's so simple that you're probably going like, should I even continue to listen to this? If you're honest with yourself, and I mean really honest, you probably don't have the momentum in your business you want, and you're definitely not as consistent as you should be. Let's talk about that. We have some tips for you.
Your stories, your experiences can change it all. Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.
So if you're here listening to this, then you probably stuck around because you realized that momentum building activities can actually have significant impact on the growth of your business. I think for us to really start and to dive into this topic, we have to think about how do businesses grow? Now, there is this myth, well, I call it a myth because everybody wants this instant growth overnight, right? Instant success. And it's so funny. I even today, I was like, okay, let's get some stats on this. I couldn't find stats. I used ChatGPT. I used it all. And it's basically like, this is literally ChatGPT told me it was a myth. In most cases, what I was finding was that most of the business we say that are instant successes actually were after they had failed a bunch and learned before from a bunch of other ways of doing business. And then it just worked into this thing. The reality is business grows slow. And I know none of us want to hear that, right? Because we're putting so much online, we're risking so much to grow our business. Really, growth in business is more like a hockey stick where it starts here and then all of a sudden it can take off like that. And I believe with all my heart, the reason why building that momentum are so important is because that growth compounds. So you start here and then all of a sudden that adds and that adds and that adds. And all of a sudden before you know it, then it compounds to where it jumps. So much of the time, the reason why we don't do the things like we need to in our business is because we try so hard to skip over things and we try to get the instant effect versus doing the boring, consistent stuff that we all know over time will work. So before I jump deeper into this video, at the end of this video, I'm going to go through 10 things that hinder you from being consistent and hinder you from having momentum. So stick around for that. But I want to build into that because I think there's a foundation we have to build that supports this idea of building momentum and building that consistency. So one of the key parts is sitting around what I said, momentum building activities. The key part I want you to hear is building activities. So there's a difference between actions that are actually building things towards your goal of growing your business, doing X, of being successful, and things that don't. Seems obvious. But yet, in our day-to-day life of being business owners, there's so many things that we do that actually don't further our goals. And what's dangerous about that is we get at the end of this day and we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. And I've been there. I'm actually struggling with that right now because there's so much stuff of launching this new company of things that they're important, but they're not important. And they're not actually helping me get to the goal. And before I know it, my day is gone and I didn't actually get anything done that actually helped me reach and obtain things towards being successful at this. And it's so easy to do, to let the noise in, to let the distractions. One of the things I want to get into on this is that it's easy to lose focus on these activities that will reach our goal because we don't write them down. We don't take the time to change and really think through what are things that are critical to our growth and what things are not. And by simply just writing that down and getting that in a place where we can practically start doing those activities, it will make a huge difference. Instead of just going through, okay, what fire should I put out next? I think that's been a huge part of what I've screwed up in business is that I feel like I'm always putting out fires and I'm always doing the urgent over the important. Sometimes they overlap, but most of the time, think about, okay, even if you're a client or a customer facing business where you have people that you have to do customer service with, yes, you want to keep your customer happy, but sometimes at the expense of getting the things you need to get done to serve your other customers. So how do you handle those things? How do you put things in place to keep yourself on track? And I think that's one of the things of having a really solid to-do list of, okay, These are 5 things. And I know it's going to sound crazy because do 3 things. Or maybe if you're an overachiever, do 10. But I guarantee you, if you could even just focus on 3 things every single day that are moving you towards your goal, you'll be that much closer because 3 becomes 6, becomes 9, becomes 12. And you see how that hockey stick starts to grow because we start doing the actions and the things that are moving the ball forward versus not. Yes, that sounds simple. Yes, Jeremy, that's great. I understand that. I sometimes do that, but life happens and I don't know how to deal with that. So I think there's a word that I really think we need to work on together. Okay. No. Oh, that was hard to say. Actually, no, it wasn't. N-O. No. Sometimes we just have to say no. And if you continue to say yes to everyone, then you're saying no anyways. That's the thing that's the thing we have to realize, that sometimes we don't want to say no. Sometimes we don't want to disappoint people. Sometimes we don't want to do those things. But every time you say yes, there's only a finite amount of time in the day and there's only a finite amount of things you can actually accomplish. So you're going to say no to something. You might as well say no to the things that are actually not helping you reach your goals. Now, the next part of this is stop making excuses. We make excuses. And that's something because we're like, well, this person represents this much business and this is that. And we come up with everything. And that's fine, but put boundaries around it. That's what those to-dos are about. Going, no matter what, I'm going to cut through all the noise. I'm going to cut through all the distractions and I'm going to do these things. And even if it means, hey, I'm can't reach me for the first 3 hours a day and you knock those things out. Now you can deal with all the other stuff, right? But the thing is, if you don't start building your life around doing the things that actually build momentum, where are you going? So that's the thing is we wonder why we get stuck in business, right? We look at ourselves and where our business isn't growing, it's flat, it's sometimes going on decline. We're like, I am working my butt off, but I'm stuck and I'm going nowhere. Why? Because the activities you're doing aren't creating momentum. And that's something that I think we need to stop and really think about that for this next point. That's really, really, really important is we've all heard of Newton's first law of motion. I think that applies to momentum too and how we do business. See, Newton's law says whatever stays in motion or whatever. Well, let me write this down. An object in motion stays in motion unless something interacts with it, either to stop it or push it forward. And it talks about this idea that it stays in a consistent state of motion until it's affected. So the reason I believe in this law of momentum is what I'd call it. If you've not started doing things that are growing the momentum, then you're not moving at all. If you are moving, but you continue to do things that are now slowing you down, then eventually you'll come to a stop. But if you're doing things that build your momentum, and build your momentum, and build your momentum, all of a sudden you're going the fast speed of growth you're wanting, but it started out really slow. It started out with doing the consistent, which we're getting into, the consistent things that actually give you momentum. So if you're feeling stuck today, I want you to go push a ball or something, I don't know, something that rolls, something, and just see something move and realize you did something to make it move. And then if you really want to go fast, push it really fast and you're going to see it go faster. So let's stop real fast and kind of recap. So the idea right now is we have to start realizing that we have to put constant thought and guard our time to make sure we're doing momentum building activity. We have to realize that we have to say no to some things so we can say yes to the things that need to happen. Stop making excuses and realize the law of momentum is there is an actual effect of what our actions do or don't do that we have to take responsibility. So we're getting really close to these 10 things that hinder us, that are barriers to us having that momentum, having that growth. And so we're getting there. But I want to talk through the idea of why consistency is so important when we talk about momentum building things. Now you might be thinking, okay, Jeremy, you've talked about these activities that I can do that actually grow my business towards my goals or my dreams or wherever it is, but I don't know what they are. And I would say most of us know some of the things, and we're still not doing those things. And yes, there might be things we don't know. And the reason why I bring this up, there is this, I don't know if this is something I've been stuck in, and I'm just being really honest with you right now. I've been stuck in this place of trying to figure out everything about growing things on YouTube and TikTok and all these other things of how to get traction. Because yes, I can create all this great content, but if no one ever sees it, I can't help anybody. And so I've gotten this place where I continue to just analyze and watch this video and do this and do that. All the while, I'm actually not doing anything. So therefore, and not putting enough videos out. So therefore, I'm not actually doing momentum building activities. So Defeat 90, as I'm starting this, is not actually growing like it should be because I'm actually not doing the activities. And I'm being fully transparent in that. And I think sometimes we get so stuck on having to make the right move or whatever it is that we don't move at all. And we don't even realize we're not moving because we think because I'm watching this video, I'm making momentum. I'm doing something. But it's really not momentum. How do we figure those things out? And I think where it comes from is consistency. Consistency is not about just doing, right? It is, but it's about learning. Okay. So it's about shots on goal, right? If you take 100 shots, you have 100 chances more of scoring. You have 100 chances of more of, hey, if that shot doesn't work, fixing your shots. Have 100 shots of how to play defense or play better offense against your defense that's attacking you. You have more opportunities. So now if you take that 100 and you go to 1,000 times shots on goal, you have even more data to be able to understand where you're going. So when I say that maybe you don't know what those actions are, well, you know a few, do those, do a lot of it. And as you do that, you're going to start getting more and more data and figuring out what's working, what's not working. And over time, what's crazy is you're going to end up having more successes through that. In business, really what businesses that grow do is they have a lot of shots on goal and they learn, okay, this thing works and they do more of it. And then this thing doesn't work and they do less of it. And overall, they get a better strategy and a better understanding of, okay, this is what I need to do to grow the business. But if you're always analyzing without doing, you have nothing to really analyze and you're just stuck because you're not moving forward. Consistency is something that is tied in with the momentum. You can't have momentum. If you want the faster momentum, you have to put a force in action with it, which means you have to be consistent. You have to do the thing. If you go up and down at that, and a lot of times, here's the thing we don't think about. When we go up, let's say let's use me as an example. I produced 15, 20 videos a day, right? Because I'm trying to get it out there. And then all of a sudden I drop off and I don't post for 2 weeks. And then I do 15, 20 videos. We already know that consistency is really important with posting so people can build a rapport with you and get to know you and have trust in what you're doing, right? That's the same thing with our customers. When we do things and we're not consistent and we go and we do this thing for a while and then we stop doing it and then we do it for a while and then we stop doing it, it really affects things. But to do the consistency starts to build the momentum. And so there's power in that. And there is focus in that of focusing on what's important and moving forward and doing it. Now, some of you guys are saying, well, I struggle with consistency. And that's been me. Okay. So my biggest thing in entrepreneurship has been discipline. Now, granted, I'm learning now some of that is tied to my ADHD and things that I'm actually now getting things in a better place with that because I understand more about me and my weaknesses. And I'm being fully transparent in that. But the reality, one of my favorite books of all time is called Atomic Habits. And it proposes this idea that we are all undisciplined. So when you see that person, you're like, man, that guy, that woman has their act together. Holy cow, I wish I could be them. The reality is, he says that for every person, we're all not great at self-discipline. They just have a system in place to keep them disciplined. And that's where consistency really falls off, is you have to have the tools and the things to keep you going. And I have been through so many different project management tools and all this other things. I've finally found something with AI that really is helping me and keeping things in my forefront and building out my assistant and all this other stuff. The reality is, if you don't have the system in place to keep you on track about being consistent, you probably won't. But when you start looking at the pain of not being consistent, and you look at the pain of how consistency affects momentum, and when you're not having momentum, what your business is either going to stop or go backwards or die, then finding a way to have this is really important. Now you're going to be like, well, I have man, as soon as I get to the office, I get hit with this and that and this and that. And again, excuses. And I think at the end of the day, what's important is either important or it's not. It's either it's important or it's not, guys. Come on. It's not rocket science. The thing is we have to get the system. We have to get the things that we really want to have happen in place, protect us from doing the things, because I guarantee you, if you don't, you won't do it. So we get to the part you hopefully have all been waiting for, the top 10 barriers that stop us that you really need to be aware of, because it's these things along the lines, we've talked about a little of them through here, that really are hindering you from actually doing the work and being consistent. And we all know that, again, I think you guys can understand the value of how truly important that momentum building activities and consistency is to grow in your business. So barriers of consistency. We're going to start with that. 5 barriers for that. The first one, lack of focus. We've talked about that. Like, so much of the time is we don't have focus on what we need to be doing, and having a system in place to keep us focused to do those things. We let things in that distract us. Second is, tied into that, is a lack of a plan. We don't have a plan in place. There has to be something that keeps you going and moving forward on that. This is something else too. So let's say you work on your focus, or you're struggling with focus, and you have a plan and you're struggling with carrying out the plan. Having accountability, having someone to do this with you, whether that be someone in your company, and if you're just a solopreneur, find a friend. I have a friend that I talk to weekly, that we keep each other accountable about the things that are moving our business forward, and we're working on that together. So we don't have to do that alone. And I think that's where my heart behind Defeat 90, the collective, and what we're going to eventually build that out to, is finding those people that we can talk to and help keep us consistent in the things we need to. You guys are not going to like me after I say this, but this is a real thing. We're just lazy. Somehow we got into business and we just thought, oh, everything is just going to be simple and it's great. And then it's hard and we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I want to dive even further from that laziness, because sometimes I don't think it's even really just laziness, but there's something broken in our motivation inside of us, broken in our why. And that's one last point I want to pull out of when it comes to being self-disciplined, being consistent, that talks about in Atomic Habits. Everything has to stem from your why. And if your why is not strong enough to overcome your laziness, there's something there that's disconnected. And I think you really need to take a look, because it's something I've had to deal with. So I've been through a lot in my life. And some of the things I've been facing is there's been a lot of people that have not been the greatest, not the kindest to me, and have said things that are very hurtful. And through that, my self-worth has taken a hit. And in that has perpetuated and created things outside in my life and business that have hindered me. When I start being lazy, and I do have those moments where I'm not motivated, it's normally ties back to lack of belief in myself. And it's something I have to work through, and I have to think through, and I have to process, and I have to pull that out and speak truth. And going, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. This is what I've done. This is what I can do, and work through that. So if you are struggling with laziness, dive deeper. The last thing when it comes to consistency is distractions. And we all have them, and we've talked about it. You say no, right? And stop making excuses. And probably the reverse order. Stop making excuses and just say no. But distractions are going to be the biggest enemy to you getting stuff done, period. Because there's always going to be something that can be distracting. So let's move on. Barriers to momentum. I talked about this a little bit. But analysis creates this paralysis sometimes that just it's overwhelming, and we have to stop thinking. And this is tied to the next part of this: analysis and perfection. Sometimes we don't want to make a mistake, so we don't actually act because we're so consumed and we're so like, oh, I could screw up, I could fail, I could do this, and then before too long, because we're trying to get every single thing perfect, instead of putting out, like for me, instead of putting out 20 videos a day, I put out 1, 2 maybe. And again, that causes me to have less shots on goal. So we have to really stop and realize that analysis can be great when it's tied to actions. And perfection can be great if we tie it back to excellence. And we look at it as we're building things out, going like, I can tweak this. But it has to happen in alignment with movement. Okay. The other thing too is, I think a huge hindrance to why we lose momentum is we want the quick way, we want the quick hack, and the quick fix. And sometimes we'll do that for a few minutes and realize, oh, it doesn't work, and then we get discouraged and we actually stop, or we just table it because we want the quick win. And when it doesn't happen, we're like, oh, because again, momentum happens over consistency. And so we have to stop that. Yes, there can be hacks. Yes, there's things to learn, but it can't be at the expense of consistent momentum. Okay. Hey, you know what made the list again? Distractions. Seriously. Distractions. We start working on something. Okay. Like for instance, I had this thing. Okay. I'm working on losing weight and doing this journey, and I'm really doing well with it, but I'm missing ice cream. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this. I love ice cream. I really do. I love it. And sometimes I get like the Halo Tops and stuff like that, but I have realized there's a thing called the creamy or something like that, the Ninja Creamy. Oh my gosh. And the other day I was working, I was really in the focus state, and all of a sudden I saw something pop up about that, popped in my head about wanting ice cream, and something led to another thing and some comment. And then all of a sudden, literally 2 hours later, in ADHD, but like 2 hours later, I'm like close to buying this thing, but I'm like, no, I just need to sit on it. I like when I do stuff like that, I try to think through it, and if I'm going to actually use it and do it, because I'm like super excited. I'm like, yay, ice cream. It's like, well, I actually make the ice cream, and actually, is that going to distract me from the things? But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But I just illustrated to you right there. I got distracted from this video I'm making with you because of an ice cream maker. Distractions, guys. They're real. It's important to stay focused. It's important to have a plan. One thing that really hinders a lot of people in momentum, they just don't start. You can't move something that's not in motion. Like you have to get the thing in motion to get really getting momentum. You know what I'm saying? If you don't start, and sometimes, again, going back to analysis of paralysis, that stops us from moving. So just start. You learn, you grow, you keep on doing it, you iterate, more shots on goal. The last thing is the lack of motivation. And this goes back to what we were saying before. Is there something inside of you, of your why, that doesn't connect with what you're actually doing? And maybe you need to revisit your why to start realizing why you don't actually want to do the things it's going to take to get the momentum, to grow your business like you. You're burnt out. Maybe there's other things at play, but find the help, do the work. So last, I'm really been bad about this. If you liked what you've seen, and I guess I should recap. Let's do that before I do that. Again, ADHD distraction. First of all, when we get to the idea of consistency, we need the systems. We need to be able to realize what those things are we're doing, and we need to do them consistently, have a plan, and that's going to spur on the momentum. We have to say no to distractions, not make excuses for it, and be focused. And the more we do that, the more shots on goal, the more we're disciplined, the more chances we have for the hockey stick growth. And ultimately, these barriers that we all have them in some shape or form. And we need to really analyze our life and take a second and be like, okay, what's keeping me from doing the things that actually are important to growing my business? So getting back to thinking of growing my business, if you like this at all, please like, subscribe, do that whole YouTube thing, or wherever you're at, whatever platform you're seeing this on, because it really helps us to grow this. And really, if you really like this, and this is something that's actually genuinely helped you move forward in your life, share it with a friend, because we want to help other business owners, because we are in this together, guys. We are in this to defeat 90.
Your stories, your experiences can change it all. Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.